Today's show is brought to you by naturallyinspiredminerals.com. If I could pick only one supplement to take with me on a deserted island, it would probably be my plant-derived minerals. I've been taking these minerals for years now, and I can't say enough about them. Our bodies need efficient amounts of minerals, many in trace amounts, to function at optimum levels. Keep your mineral levels high and your body feeling good with naturallyinspiredminerals.com while supporting our show.
One of the interesting things about a democratic way of doing a state government or a government is that we do have more choices. We have a lot of choices, and that can be used against us, such as through distracting us, like the sports you were saying. Mm-hmm. I think the other cult in America is the sports cult of the American male, particularly, who, can't miss football, can't miss a basketball game, can't miss golf. Because anything to distract us from what is going on that is about power over the people. Mm-hmm. And that's hard for Americans to imagine, because they look around and go, well, yeah, I have a lot of choices, though. I mean, nobody's making me do anything. Right. Well, not in the sense of the Gestapo driving up in a black car at midnight. Mm-hmm. No, but you're being set up to not pay attention, I would say.
The entire contents of this podcast and website are based upon the opinions of Tammy Garcia and her guests, unless otherwise noted. The information on this podcast is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Tammy Garcia and her guests. This is the Naturally Inspired Podcast, coming to you from our 1890 homestead in Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Tammy, and I want to thank you for joining us. Let's get started and help people feel good so they can do what they love for longer. Today on the Naturally Inspired Podcast, we have Elana Freeland joining us. Over the years, Elana has been a Waldorf school pioneer, teacher, lecturer, storyteller, and writer. She has written for alternative publications, edited the stories of MK Ultra survivors and ritual abuse survivors, as well as ghostwritten books on diverse topics. Her second major in college was biology, and she was awarded a Master's of Arts from St. John's College in Santa Fe, New Mexico in 1996. Elana is an accomplished researcher and the author of several books. Her latest book, Geoengineered Transhumanism, is the last in the trilogy of books about geoengineering. This series makes it clear, from fluoride in the water we drink, Roundup in our soil and food, genetically altered food that we eat, and nanoparticles in the air that we breathe, and now with DNA altering injections in our bloodstream, that we are under a full-scale attack by our own government. Elana shows us the science behind all this propaganda, constantly being spun by a media that is owned by the very forces that it is to report on, and who now practices censorship in flagrant violation of the Constitution and any scraps of ethics and morality. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Elana Freeland as we dive into geoengineering and transhumanism for this episode of the Naturally Inspired Podcast. Thank you so much for being on the Naturally Inspired Podcast today. I'm very excited to get into this discussion with you. This is a topic that I don't think people are very well aware of in the mainstream. Right. And furthermore, when they hear these types of words that we're going to be talking about today, they tend to blow it off as conspiracy theory. They tend to blow it off as, crazy talk or whatever. But now that we've entered into this new realm of COVID, it's becoming undeniable as to how far our technology is capable of going, and to how it connects to our biology. These are all issues now that are, right at the forefront, and it's becoming increasingly harder for people to deny it.
Mm-hmm.
So your background, I want to start with your background in geoengineering, because this is something I think people think of, that's kind of scholarly work and over my head, I don't really understand it. So can you give us a background of just how you came to do this kind of work and why?
Definitely. And, the word people will recognize, which is the geoengineering word, is chemtrails.
Yes.
And chemtrails was how I came in. That was the term used, not by everyone. There were a lot of arguments about whether to use it or not, because in my opinion, the CIA had already turned it into a tinfoil hat word, right, when really the word chemtrails is straight from the U.S. Air Force Academy's chemistry manual for pilots, because they prepare pilots to go up and they have to know what is in the fuel. They have to know what's coming out the back of the jet. And they have to know what supplementary systems are being unloaded in the sky that we are breathing in down here. So, the word chemtrails was never a bad word to me, but to some people it was. And so my first two books, Chemtrails, HAARP, and The Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, I did that in 2014. And my publisher required me to use the word chemtrails, which was fine, because we weren't using the word geoengineering much back then. We knew about the word, but that was pre-2015, when they had the climate conference in New York City, a big, big event, many world leaders. That's when they all signed up to pay about carbon emissions. And we all were sold the cover story of climate change and global warming. And both of those are cover stories. I don't mean that they don't have some truth in them, because anyone out there who has ever studied the media knows that if you're reading disinformation, not misinformation, misinformation is just bad scholarship, but disinformation is purposeful taking of the facts and kind of twisting them, spinning them in a certain way. And if you're looking at that and you want to know the truth in mainstream media, which are corporate run, so they're controlled, and they're controlled by the big interests, not by the people, then you really have to understand how to read that in order to figure out, okay, climate change. Yes, the climate has changed, but why has it changed? Is it really the carbon emissions from the millions and billions, the cars that we have? No, not necessarily. It actually, you would have to then look to the military industrial complex in order to see why it has changed. Then the term global warming, is there warming going on? Well, yes, when you ionize the atmosphere, which is what has happened, and that's the title of my second book that came out in 2018, Under an Ionized Sky, From Chemtrails to Space Fence Lockdown. I was looking at how exactly they ionize the sky. Why do they ionize the sky? Well, they need it for wireless operations, for millions and millions and millions of wireless operations. And I don't mean you on your cell phone. I don't mean rapid downloads on your computer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real military, industrial intelligence use of the ionized atmosphere for many, many, many operations going on that we are never told a thing about. So that's the disinformation of all that is kind of where I came in, because I had been spending, 20 years. I mean, I'm an ex-60s person, and we all were critical of the establishment back then.
Yeah.
And we were very political. I was not one of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll 60s people, though I liked some of those things. I was really the political, spiritual seeker type was where I fit in the 60s. And I'm so grateful for having had the experience of the 60s. Because it's so different now, and and youth are so different. Youth who have been raised on media. Yep. We were not raised on media. We did not have the little cell phone that you're staring at, or the TV on all the time. And we really were all sort of looking at nature, looking into things, and so I was prepped by at least 20 years of critical thinking and research into the establishment, or what I like to call more exactly the military industrial intelligence complex. So I was really primed for this kind of a job where you're hearing the cover story everywhere, and nations are being blackmailed into paying for carbon emissions when that's really not what's causing. I mean, carbon is essential to life. And you might think, well, yeah, but your car exhaust is a different thing. But the carbons are what they're collecting. And now, bingo, they're selling them. And they're creating fuels out of them. And they're doing all kinds of things. So there is follow the money. And you see why this blackmail has happened. But when the second book was about laying out how they did the ionizing, yes, but it was also about the space fence. And the space fence is really a reach for people, because I'm probably the only person that I know of that talks regularly about the space fence. And when you look it up in the history, or you look on the internet, what you'll see is they'll try to convince you that, the space fence. Yeah, we had a space fence in the southern United States that went for many, many miles. And then we worked on something in the Marshall Islands and created, a sort of radar instrument to be able to detect missiles coming in. And no, that's all disinformation or partial information. Okay. That's not what the space fence is about. What the space fence is about, and this includes all the satellites. I was reading that there are over 450,000 satellites up there now. Wow. And these satellites are not just for communication, nor are they straightforward. They're really they're really used for tracking, tracing, surveillance, and targeting individuals and targeting populations with various frequencies. Right. And now we're into the weaponizing aspect of why the sky has been ionized. And that's where, if you don't have this background that I have, you know something's wrong. That, wow, the corporate CEOs and all the guys I see on TV they're all crooked. And so what happened in America is everybody who wants things to be good was convinced that all politics is bad. It's all evil. All these guys are lying, every single one of them. And people turned away from politics because it's all about money in America. It's not really about ideology per se, other than the ideology of, I want to make a buck, however I need to make a buck. And so it's really quite unfortunate because by turning away, and this happened 50 years ago, Americans have been turning away regularly and getting involved in their technological toys, their comforts, their conveniences, their entertainment.
Well, and there seems to be a belief system that, oh no, we're past all that. We're past all the atrocities that could happen.
I don't know who's saying that. I don't know anyone saying that.
A lot of Canadians feel that way.
Oh, well, Canada is different.
Yeah,
Canada has taken a back seat for many years, and I knew it was a bad idea. And now I think Canadians are waking up to just how bad an idea that was. But it's a shame, isn't it? Really, Tammy, that you have to be pressed right to the wall.
Yeah.
And it's really too late.
Right.
To go back.
In America, people stopped attending town hall meetings. People stopped attending school board meetings. And I find it interesting that kind of coincided with the sports initiative, right? Like everything became about sports. Well, if you're going out of town every weekend to your kids' club volleyball tournaments and your son's baseball travel team, and nobody's lawns are getting mowed anymore. Nobody wants a yard. They don't attend meetings. They're not engaged in the community anymore because there's so much kind of pressure to build this busy family life that's supposed to be based in family, but it's really more about just carting a kid from place to place to be busy.
Well, and it's about being carried by technology, and that's really what I've gotten to with the third book, and the third book just came out in October. I spent 2.5 years researching and writing it, and I mean every day, hours and hours and hours, to get it right, because we had this thing happen 2 years ago of a stealth takeover through the fear of a virus, a non-existent virus, I might add. And when this happened, it was evident to me that, so space fence, it's done. And smart cities next.
Yes.
So the smart city concept, which the UN has been promoting in just about every community in the United States for certain. I don't know about Canada, but I certainly think so. What that means is it's all about, what do they call it? Sustainable development.
Yes.
And these buzzwords from the UN. And what is the UN? Well, it's the errand boy for the elites, for the global elites, the worlders they used to be called.
And all that language comes from Agenda 2030, the sustainable. You can find it in your own little town's documents. If you start looking through their plans to develop or projects, you'll start to be able to identify the very same language. It's all about sustainable, and Rosa Koire was really a great person to follow on that whole.
And so to get Rosa Koire, bless her heart. So to get the UN funding for all those fancy programs, communities have had to sort of bend the knee to the UN and the forces that control the UN. And most communities most people in America, from my experience, and I have lived abroad, in America in particular, people tend to be very narrowly focused on, like you were saying, getting the kids to the game, and these small sort of incremental, and keeping your job and paying the mortgage, and all these very responsible things in a narrow range. And as far as a wider range, certainly your time can be eaten up, particularly if you're spending, time on technology, and your job is even more demanding now, and everybody needs a 2-income or maybe 3-income base to run a modern life. So they're keeping us near sort of a poverty fear, and that certainly was not true in the 70s or the 80s. So if you back up and sort of look at it through another lens, and that's what I do, that's what I'm known for, you begin to see how intentional it all is. It isn't just that everything sort of happened at once. It is made to happen, because one thing I know, having studied the global elites for about 50 years, is they're up at dawn. They go to bed at midnight. They are pursuing their dreams, which are our nightmares. They don't raise their children the same way. Their children don't watch television, because they know television is a programming device for the masses. So, there's all kinds of differences when you start to really study them, because it's a very different lifestyle. It's not just a matter of more money and more power. No, it's a very different lifestyle. So this has been very carefully prepared for the past, I'd say, 100 years, since the failure of the Versailles Treaty and the failure of the League of Nations. And then finally, they were able to, in 50 years later, they were able to establish the UN. And, but if you don't have a sense of history, and most people in America, and then most high schools that teach history, it's incredibly boring, because you're teaching the history that they want us to have, and not the real history. I mean, there's the adage that history is written by the winners. Yeah, that's true. It is. And you have to really dig. So I spent years before my years in geoengineering, writing a series called Sub Rosa America. And my series is 4 books, 1,300 pages. And it is about America since John Kennedy's assassination. And I wrote it in a fictional format, because, as many authors have discovered, if you're going to write the truth, you're going to have a narrative, have a storyline, not just a bunch of facts all the time. And that's what I did. I talked about the 60s, all the way from World War II through to, and I chose a date from a nightmare I had one night many years ago in the 90s when I started these books. I dreamed that there was a huge number in front of me. It was 2019. It seemed to be a date. And it was 4 stories, I don't know, 3 or 4 stories high, huge numbers, and they were on fire. They were on fire. And when I woke up from that, my heart was racing, and I decided to start those books in 2019, with the main character being older. And I took the book from there, and then she'd do these flashbacks to the 60s and 70s. So they're basically history books. And to write those books, which were basically fiction, you can read them as fiction if you want, but they're just loaded with history. And there are a lot of work in some ways for people.
I bet.
But I have sort of a cult following now of, I would say that not even 1,000 people know that I've written those books, and I've never sold them. I just put them up on Amazon and let them be. I think that the research I did for those books, 10 years of painstaking research, and I am a very good researcher. I have a master's in it, but I know how to do it. And so I used a lot that I got there for those books. And then when I came to the geoengineering movement, I was really prepared with a very good historical background of what happened to create World War II, in particular, what happened from the World War II, such as Operation Paperclip, when we brought the Nazis into the US and basically gave them carte blanche, and the founding of the MK Ultra program. And then, we were off to the races, you might say, for a technological technocracy a what some call a cryptocracy. In other words, it's being run secretly from secret quarters by secret societies that President Kennedy addressed as a problem in America just a while before his assassination. So I get the big picture. And so I've written now the third book, which is Geoengineered Transhumanism.
Yes.
How the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetism, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. So now I have these 4 giant subjects that I'm tying together. And that's why the book is 690 pages long.
Well, there's a lot to cover there, isn't there?
There is. And in that, I hope to give people a handbook to the smart city, sustainable development technocracy that has been put in place. And I aver that it has been put in place through the environment first. And now we're beginning to see an injection program in which software and hardware on a nanoscale is being injected into people's bodies.
Right.
And they are being plugged into what I have called the space fence.
So you talk about 3 different kind of delivery mechanisms of this geoengineering. One of them was what they're spraying, right? And another one was our food source, GMOs.
The GMOs, yes. And you know that 26 nations around the world, I don't know if that number is larger or smaller at this point, but 26 nations, it is a federal crime to bring in any GMOs,
yes,
or certainly to grow any. The GMO seed is illegal. And
I don't think people really understand what GMO means. Could you explain that for us?
Well, GMO, I mean, it's kind of, I feel the same way about microwave ovens. Microwave ovens, people still have them. And yet in the microwave oven is a device called a magnetron. And a magnetron is a weapon system. So when you cook your food or warm it up in microwave, you're using microwaves. I don't know where people aren't getting what that means. In other words, you might as well not eat the food because it's dead by the time you pull it out of the microwave. So it's all about, the road to hell in America has been paved with convenience.
Oh, yes.
And comfort and entertainment. I would say that is our main problem here. And we make this assumption that our authorities and our doctors and, those who are trained in AMA medical schools will tell us if something's bad for us. That is simply not true. Doctors, I have not been to a doctor since I was 13 years old because I followed Chinese medicine and studied it. But I find doctors to be incredibly ignorant. They're technicians. And they might know how to operate and sew up a gash in my body, and maybe set a bone. I've had a doctor set when I've dislocated my shoulder, but otherwise, I don't see that they know much about health at all. So now we're in the dilemma of we see this injection happening. We see pictures if we're looking. Most people are just looking at the TV and therefore aren't doing the research on the internet to decipher what's really going on. But they're injecting software and hardware, very tiny, 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 into the body so that they can plug these people into Bluetooth devices. And we've seen the evidence of that. We see that there's a whole magnetic thing going on there, and with the graphene oxide, and we know that it's experimental, And we know all kinds of things if we choose to know them. And I think that's one of the interesting things about a democratic way of doing a state government or a government is that we do have more choices. We have a lot of choices. And that can be used against us, such as through distracting us, like the sports you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other cult in America is the sports cult of the American male, particularly, who, can't miss football, can't miss a basketball game, can't miss
golf,
because anything to distract us from what is going on that is about power over the people. And that's hard for Americans to imagine because they look around and go, well, yeah, I have a lot of choices, though. I mean, nobody's making me do anything. Right. Well, not in the sense of the Gestapo driving up in a black car at midnight. No, but you're being set up to not pay attention, I would say.
Yes. Today's show is brought to you by naturally inspired C60.com. C60 is a naturally occurring molecule comprised of 60 carbon atoms, forming something that looks like a hollow soccer ball. This unique structure makes C60 a free radical sponge with the ability to neutralize free radicals and reset itself again and again. Not only can C60 help maximize cell efficiency in producing more energy, but it may also provide cellular protection against environmental toxins. Shop naturallyinspiredc60.com. Build a healthy lifestyle and support our show.
Or to pay attention to things that are not pivotal to your governance.
Or preserving your freedom.
But your city council, your county, your state, your national policy. There are all kinds of things where I would say, and I haven't even hit the most important part of this, which is the programming that is going on through the electronics that we have around us. And that I can explain very, very well and very easily. But, the first thing you have to accept is that some people somewhere in this big hierarchy of power, on a world level or a national level, or even a state level, a county level, some people seem to want us to be controlled, and they want us to go in a certain direction. So they have a lot of money, they've accrued a lot of funding, they have a lot of billionaires who are willing to fund will give more power to them too. Then we have technology, we have the social media, we have these massive corporations that have the rights of an individual through our having given them brought them under the 14th Amendment, which is absolutely insane. And so we're really in a real dilemma now, because there is no going back. And there is no one coming like a Mr. Trump or whoever that no one's going to save us.
No.
But we don't have that. It's not going to happen because we're up against giants. I mean, it's not just David and Goliath. It's billions of Davids. And the Goliath is completely hidden and extraordinarily powerful through its technology. And unless we learn about technology, and people, I hear it all the time. Well, I've never liked science. Well, do I care if you like science? I don't care. This is the era you live in.
Yeah.
And
isn't it worth learning enough about it to save your own life? This is the thing I'm struggling with. Well, I think you just know too much about it, or you're reading too much about it. Well, I think you're not reading enough.
No. I mean, I don't understand that, because if you live near something dangerous, say you live next to a nuclear silo, wouldn't it behoove you to learn about it? But there's another thing that takes over, isn't there? There's the cognitive dissonance of,
Yes,
I don't want to know.
that's right. Because then I
And I
might
want
have
to
to
just
act
bury
on
my
that.
head.
Yeah.
I want to bury my head and let somebody else take care of that. And that childish desire has been fomented in this country to make everyone like children. And if people are not willing to face off their cognitive dissonance and their childishness, there's not much I can do for them. But what I wrote the book for was to just lay out how it all works, so that you can go through it and really walk into a room, and there's 60 hertz in the walls, and in Canada I guess there's 50 hertz like in Europe, and you know that the what's on the Internet of Things, what frequencies are going through if you have a smart meter on your neighbor's house. You know what your electromagnetic situation is. You may not know what your chemical situation is, probably not, but you are breathing chemicals every day from what's being dumped on us and delivered to us in the sky. And the GMO foods and that's where we started all this, Tammy. The GMO foods are genetically modified. And what that means is that the seed those foods are grown from, it used to be known as Terminator seed, because it's the kind of seed that is not like heirloom seed where you can save your seed and use
harvest
it next year.
Right. Yeah.
You have to buy it every year. And so, but Americans didn't
Isn't
finish
that
reading
right there
that
a strange thing? Like, really, if you stop to think about that, if you're growing something and you can no longer harvest the seed from it to plant it again, what is that telling you there? Right.
Well, exactly.
It's a way to patent the seed so that you can then own nature, even though nature's not patentable. And you shouldn't be making money off of that.
Well, and that seed is not nature.
No.
It's not from nature.
And that's the only way it's patentable.
It's genetically engineered seed.
Yeah.
So when you're eating GMOs, and when I go out to eat,
you can't avoid it.
I eat GMOs. I know that. But then the next day or three, I hold myself to a regime of my usual organic. And people who say, well, organic's so expensive. I don't know what store you're going to, but there's not much difference anymore. And the main problem is finding out if it really is organic, because it'll say natural. They can use the word natural and not prove it. So yeah, if I sound paranoid, if I sound like someone working overtime to figure out what is what and where is it, you're right. Paranoia.
Well, the education is the key. Education is the key. That's all we can do is educate ourselves and then make the choices, in the know. It's what's wrong about it is the deception behind the withholding the information. That's what's wrong with it. The deception, the hiding.
It is very serious, but that's what you get when you allow a government to pass the National Security Act in 1947 that created the CIA as well. And certainly Harry Truman realized after the fact that he had made a big mistake. And now national security basically means that if you need it to be secret.
Oh, yeah. That's all they have to say now. In listening to these hearings going on in Senate hearings going on about the origins of COVID, that's all they have to say is, well, that's a matter of national security. I can't talk about that. I can't answer that. National security. It's
That's how it is now.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's new that's been passed, and I have it in the book, is there's actually a law that has been, jerry-rigged. It used to be quite straightforward, and now the lawyers have gotten hold of it. And if you really read it, what it's saying is it's okay to lie to the public.
Oh.
All right to lie, and you can't be held responsible for
because
that.
We're stupid and we can't really handle the truth. Is that one of those situations?
It's really Yeah, it is kind of that. It's sort of
Yeah.
the sky's the limit now. And all of this has gotten away from us. So let me go back to the programming and let's finish that.
Okay.
I think I covered the GMO. So if you're
Yes.
eating
Thank you.
GMO foods on a regular basis, you're making a mistake. Your immune system um, it'll eventually fail, but it's been weakened and weakened and weakened. So I highly, highly recommend that you find an organic farmer if you can in your area. And if you are a meat eater, I don't eat much meat because I figured out that the animal and I are breathing in what they're dropping from the chemical trails, and that the animal too is trying to survive this and will
Store it in
try to
its
get rid of
tissues.
it in their milk, and then you eat the cheese and you eat the yogurt and you eat the. So again, you're caught at this place of trying to get a good quality, and good quality at this point means organic. Yeah, all these nations are much smarter than we are. They're not allowing.
They also don't in
GMOs.
Europe don't even really know what organic produce is because all of their stuff is organic. That's not a term used worldwide. It's a term used in this country because we allow our food to be sprayed with toxic chemicals and think that that's not going to do anything because money wins.
Right. I mean, the message years ago was when Monsanto made an aluminum resistant seed. And what that was about was, that's what I point out in the book about the 3 delivery systems, is they all work together. So what's going on down here on the surface of the earth is, we hear about the aluminum in the vaccinations for the babies coming in.
Yeah.
But we don't hear that at the same time, aluminum is being dropped in masses on a nano scale, and we're breathing it in. So we have a very high, Alzheimer's is off the charts. Autism, I think the latest figure is 1 out of 6 boys in the United States have autism.
And climbing.
So that's all aluminum based. And so the aluminum is in the soil now because it's been dropping from the sky. And Monsanto was an insider and was informed that this would happen. So it made an aluminum resistant seed so that it could make the most money off of its produce. So it's all been very carefully planned. When you start digging and following the money and into the corporate relationships, you see that to undermine the human immune system is exceedingly important. And now we have a massive assault through the inoculation. And the reason for that is not to make us unhealthy so that the medical industry can make more money. Yeah, they can do that. No, the reason the immune system is under assault, and it has been consistent for 50 years, is so that they can produce a transhuman. And a transhuman is I think of it as a hybrid. So you have the human genetics, but because the human now is going to be plugged in a very real sense, I'm not using that as a metaphor, being plugged into the space fence or what people call the smart grid, whatever you want to call it, that we will be plugged in will mean that we are being programmed remotely and we are being run remotely. So let me explain that a little bit.
So this is the concept that you've talked about. Sorry to interrupt. The concept you have talked about is taking us from human 1.0 to human 2.0.
That's right. That's right. That's what's going on now with the inoculation. Now, the transhumanism started before this, the assault of transhumanism, and breathing what we've been breathing for, and how long have we been being geoengineered in this fashion? Well, I'd say 25 to 30 years at this point, and 30 years is known to be a generation, one generation. So for one generation, we have been being prepped by what is coming down from the sky. And that has been purposeful. So it has elements in it. And it doesn't mean that they knew exactly what would happen. I think that they have been experimenting with various chemical things that work together, don't work together,
Right.
work to, like like when you put the barium up there and you have the aluminum and you have the strontium. All of these have a different purpose for the ionizing of the atmosphere, yes. But they also want it in us, and they want to know how it affects us, and how it, in particular, how it affects the immune system, and where the level of defense is in the immune system. So all of this has been very loaded with PhDs who are studying this, loaded with nanosensors. They drop trillions and trillions of nanosensors probably daily, because they have to deal with the fact that a lot of this falls to the earth, right? I mean, if they're doing something up in the stratosphere, if it doesn't get caught in the centrifugal force of the planet rotating, it will eventually descend here. So it's been a really remarkable delivery system. And the third one is, of course, the third delivery system is the vaccination, the so-called vaccination, the inoculation, the jab. And now we're seeing that in spades. And the only reason we're seeing it is because they have tied it to obviously a societal takeover. And so, things get very silly, and yet it's a very serious issue when they're lying all the time. They're adjusting the statistics because that last lie didn't work well enough, so now it's going to be this. We are being shown what they are doing. It isn't that, aha, we caught you. Yeah. No, they don't care.
That's right.
Because that's the level of power they have now. Why? Because they know even if this eventually dissipates and fails, they will have inoculated billions of people, at least several times. So they're in good shape. And what really makes them arrogant, in my opinion, is they know about the electromagnetic system that is in place. They know it. They know how it works. They know there is no escape. And if they can just retain the geoengineering part, the cell towers, which are really microwave towers, the satellites, they've got 450,000 up now. If they can retain their system that has been the most quiet, that then they can go right into our bodies now, because we are just loaded with nanotechnology. It's inside us. We have eaten it in the foods. We have inhaled it. We have drunk it in the water. We have been inoculated with it, many of us, certainly from birth. Many people are, it's just unbelievable. So they have this system to fall back on. And that's, to me, what makes them so arrogant. And so let me explain how you are controlled remotely through your electromagnetic devices. If they have, let's just think about a geographic area for now. Let's not think about an individual targeting. Let's think about a geographic area. So with the satellites, they can send microwaves down here with frequencies, and they will tap into, let's say they tap into the local cell towers. They triangulate with them. They need a triangulation at least, and they could do a triangulation of 4 points too, but usually 3. And they create a field. They have to create an electromagnetic field in which to hold the frequencies that are being pulsed. And now there's a very important word, the pulsing.
Mm.
Pulsing of frequency is what really gets us, because our heartbeats, we are completely resonant beings.
Yes.
And the beauty of our resonance is that we can feel things deeply. We have this magnificent system that just works all on its own. We don't have to get it started in the morning or things like that. And but the back of that, the Chinese have that great phrase, the bigger the front, the bigger the back. The front is that we have this wonderful resonance by which we can really experience life. The back is that our resonance can be taken over by frequencies if they are pulsed in a certain way. So what they can do now with their control over the electromagnetics of the smart city, of your home, because you're on the grid. If you live off grid, that presents a little bit of a problem for them, but not much with the satellites, not much at all. And especially if you have a car and things like that. So they're looking for points of contact with us. And most people, it's easy because we're all tracked and traced, and they know where we are. A lot of people carry cell phones. I don't have one. It's a weapon system. I don't want one. I don't have a TV. It's a weapon system. I don't want one. So, you see my survival, my number one step in surviving this era is to really limit your technology. And you may not need to know every detail about it, and which is fine. You don't have to know every detail, but I'm telling you something very important now, is that the frequencies that can control your thinking, your emotions, and your behavior are all pulsed frequencies. So say you're thinking, if you're thinking something that is really off the wall and you have never thought it before, then you know that you either are in the path of a wave being pulsed to perhaps someone else somewhere or to some device somewhere, or it's coming for you. And it most often will come through your iPhone, your cell phone, because that's the easiest technology now, and why they've made such a fantastic, sophisticated device that you're just addicted to it. You just love it. You can't do without it. I mean, it's like you lose your cell phone and life is ending. That's been very purposeful, because most people will have it with them all the time. So
I can't help but think about all the great teachers of the past as you're talking about this, who have discovered frequency healing, have discovered the power of frequency, and then been squashed.
Well,
right?
Like Royal Rife. You must be thinking of Royal Rife. They went after him, turned him into an alcoholic because they were harassing him so badly. And now, his Royal Rife machine, he was very, very detailed. And now the Royal Rife machines that people have, they need to really check and make sure that the frequencies it's indicating you would use for cancer or whatever your condition is, make sure that it really is accurate. Because these frequencies, everything has a frequency. A banana has a frequency. Cancer has a frequency.
Right.
Your brain waves have frequency. So I mean, frequency is the name of the game.
Yes, and they've been hell bent on squashing anybody that says anything about it.
Or controlling them. Yeah. And the very smart scientists, I was just noticing that one of the scientists I really admire, who has withdrawn entirely from the world, rightfully so, and so he's still alive, is John Hutchison. He's up here in the Northwest, and he's the person who proved what's called the Hutchison effect, which had to do with the 9/11 collapse of the towers. And to understand that, you would be reading Judy Wood's excellent book, Where Did the Towers Go? A
Mm-hmm.
really very, very important book. So anyway, that's the key for you to know. Now, say they want to target your area, and I think I live in an area that has been targeted for, I would say, complacency. And the entire place is just, ho hum, everything's fine.
The people's responses do not match the response that should be taking place. That blank look, like,
Yes.
that's just, I've noticed that gradual over the years, that there's a lack of sense of urgency, that there's few and few people who respond, especially in a state of an emergency, like in a car accident or something's happened. And, you used to see when I was a kid in the 80s, people would jump, like, oh, we got to get this help, right? There's no sense of urgency in some people anymore. It's this slow reaction response. And even now, when you look someone in the face and say, people are getting myocarditis from this shot, they look at you like, well, I don't know.
Well, you're looking at people who have been conditioned now for 50 years by television.
Yeah. And that has become their reality.
And you're also, it's not just the content of TV I'm talking about here. I don't really care about the content, to tell you the truth. It's I don't see a TV very often, but from what I do see now and then, it's incredibly boring and is obviously a delivery device for programming to me. But it's the medium of the TV technology. That's the danger. Mm-hmm. The microphone that's always on, whether you unplug the TV or not, it's always on. The camera that is behind the HD big screen TV is always on. So you're talking subliminals on an amazing scale. You will never be able to figure out that. And so you will make bad judgments in life because you are being fed them purposely by AI systems. And I haven't talked about AI, but believe me, it's already a done deal. Everything in American society that is electromagnetic is being run by AI systems. So this is our condition. And what I was thinking you were going to say, Tammy, was, okay, so they're blanketing my area with complacency, but obviously it's not working with me.
Right.
Why isn't it working with me? Well, one, I don't have a cell phone. Yeah. I don't have a TV. Yeah. I mean, yes, I have buffered myself by my decisions regarding my technology, but also there's my consciousness, and I have a very active consciousness. This is one of the things about being a couch potato and just going into alpha wave in my brain and taking in what the TV is telling me to believe. Really is not a good idea, because I'm constantly trying to find my own thoughts and through my own research and my own decision making regarding perceptions that are coming in. I do not have them mediated by a technology. I am doing it on my human own. And I maintain that to retain our humanity, so that you do have reactions to things that are happening around you. You are not completely sort of dead inside, vaccinated or not vaccinated. You're going to have to make an effort, because the technology has been made so that it'll do it all for you. All you need to do is be a good slave, go to work. It may even convince you that, wow, I really want to be a waitress for the rest of my life. It's so wonderful. Remember when Klaus Schwab said, you'll be, what did he say? You'll own nothing and be happy. The reason you'll be happy is it's being pulsed into you that this is happy. So we're in 1984 and it is now 2022. And so let's realize that your old philosophy of life, of how wonderful it is to be American and you have all these conveniences and, that's over. That is over. Now it's more an effort to remain human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why
you have to exercise your consciousness, don't you, to keep it?
You do. And I think
to explore it and recognize it.
I think a perfect example is Alzheimer's. I don't want to cast aspersions on any lovely people who have Alzheimer's and have been actually intellectually alive. But when I say consciousness, I'm not talking intellect.
Right.
I'm not talking about that I'm smart. A lot of people say, oh, Elana's so smart. Well, yeah, I am smart. How have I remained smart is the much more interesting question. And that is through exercising my volition, my choices of what to spend my wonderful time on, and being able to live in such a way that the aluminum in my body, which of course I have too, just like everyone else, is not taking my brain over, because that's the first thing that your technology will help. Is if you're surrounded by technology, it's going to go for the aluminum in your brain right away, because the aluminum is very conductive. That's why they use aluminum nanoparticles in the jets, is to keep the atmosphere ionized, keep it active, keep it reflecting. It's important for that. But in us, it becomes a deficit to us because it is conductive. And those rays that are coming through us because we have somebody living next door, or, there's the smart meter on our house, whatever it is, and the fiber optic out by the sidewalk off the street, that fiber optic is not your friend. I don't know where the people got this idea. It must be disinformation. It is not your friend. So the idea that we are electromagnetically rich as a nation may be our death. So we need to begin to bolster ourselves with knowledge, first of all, and some decisions about our lifestyle, so that we can buffer ourselves from a great deal of it. And that's really my starting point for the good things that you can do.
Today's show is brought to you by preparewithtammy.com. One of the best ways to build independence and confidence is being prepared. Here at my home, 1890 Homestead, we focus on self-sufficiency like gardening, water filtration, and storable food. For more information and to order the supplies you need, go to preparewithtammy.com.
Another good thing, I'll recommend someone who has been following and doing a lot of research, a lot of practice for 10 years, over 10 years now, a herbalist in Canada named Tony Pantalaresco. And I send a lot of people Tony's way. Tony Pantalaresco, by the way.
Yeah,
it took me a long time to learn to even say it. Tony, he had Morgellons very seriously. And Morgellons is a nanotechnology that when it was started coming down in the 90s in the chemical trails, it took Clifford Carnicom a while to break into its polymer jacket as a sort of fiber, a filament, and get down to the organs inside. It's completely genetically engineered, but it's partially organic and partially inorganic. And so the Morgellons, a lot of people suffer from Morgellons. Some people have died from Morgellons. It's still going on. The CDC.
This is when they find the fibers coming out of your skin quite often, correct?
Yes, that's Morgellons. That's it. Where the fibers are actually even color coded, I might add, because they are engineered. So where was I? I was talking about the Morgellons, and I can't remember now. I was talking about getting Tony Pantalaresco. Yeah. So Tony had the Morgellons, and he got better because of various things he found. He discovered some supplements that work very well for health. And then he discovered the nanotechnology that's in our bodies. And he began to experiment with ways to get that out of our bodies. And that's why
that was one of my questions I was going to ask, is detoxing from this metal. I know we can never eliminate it all, but
no, because we're breathing it all the time.
Right. When we're working on our consciousness, that's a great way to almost, build an antidote, if you will, to it affecting our thinking and whatnot.
It is, but it's not enough.
Right.
No, there has to be, what he has discovered is the baths. I take the baths that he recommends. They're electrolytic baths, which means they're mildly electrical, chemically so. I do 1 cup of baking soda, 1 cup of Epsom salts, 1 cup of sea salt, and 1 cup of borax. Mm-hmm. And I do the baths. I normally do it about once a week, but if I were ill or thinking I was getting ill or any of that, I would probably amp up my baths. The other one is the ionized foot bath, which is basically more of the same, but I think Tony says to use vinegar or something. But you're making it a sort of mildly electrical, so that it's kind of
attracting all the particles.
The particles out of your skin. And the reason for the borax is very interesting. Borax is basically a laundry supplement, but it's actually has boron in it, which is from the periodic table. And the boron opens your pores, because you may not be aware of it, but you have a biofilm all over your body now. And, I can see it now and then because my skin shines. And that is an element that's coming down from the sky. And is blocking your pores. So you need to open that up in order to have the exit of nanoparticles and nanotechnology. Then Tony has another system called the triangle. But if you go to his sites, you'll see plenty. He has a show that he does, I don't know, every week or every day. I don't know. He just works constantly. And I think he's helped thousands of people, truthfully.
Wow.
Because he's very good about responding to emails and listening to symptoms and that sort of thing. He's the person I recommend the most. There are others you can always find. If you do Facebook, you can find many Morgellons sufferers, and they have sites, and they are all sharing their information, which is very, very valuable. But you see what I'm saying here. There is no doctor you can go to for this technology.
No. They'll laugh you out.
There is no one.
They'll give you Xanax.
So we're on our own. And that, I've been on my own since I was 13, and then studied Chinese medicine, learned how to think in yin yang, which is nothing more than acid alkaline. I've been on a certain diet for about 50 years now that I pretty much maintain to keep my body alkaline, because these nanobots and nanotechnology and nanoparticles love acidity. Right. So if you don't want them creating this network of neuronal network of their own making, that's what happens. Elon Musk has explained that with his product. Then you must. I
thought an interesting thought too is that when we started seeing the rollout of the vaccines, we started seeing people who were able to, stick keys to their heads, stick keys to their arms, and then there were people who were unvaccinated that were still able to do that. And that was always a thought to me, like, well, why would they be able to do it?
Well,
too?
I don't know. I don't know about that story, because the second part of it, had they had a PCR test, because the PCR test the swab test is not it's not a test at all. It's implanting things in you. And so I would imagine, other than proximity, very possible. And yet also, can I just mention that from the sky, we are having the same graphene oxide dumped on us. I told you they work corollary. Yeah. And so they use graphene oxide primarily in geoengineering to create the fake snow and the fake ice that we have now. Mm-hmm. These are all it's all called nucleated snow and ice. And the graphene helps them to create it. So we are getting it from both ends. That's mm-hmm. why I said vaccinated and unvaccinated, where the so-called vaccinated, I don't even like to use that term, that the inoculated, they are undergoing a transhuman process. That's the important part about them. And I, as an unvaccinated, uninoculated, am not undergoing that process, but I am undergoing other processes that are delivered by these delivery systems I've been talking about.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, we've heard this term of shedding, and you're the first person that aligned with my thinking about shedding, because this isn't a virus, a dead, virus that we're being injected with. This is a software that we're being injected with. So how could shedding possibly be taking place? And so when I talked to my husband about it, and we, talked about it at length, I was like, it's a frequency, I think, that's being emitted, because it's disrupting menstrual cycles. People are feeling a little fluish after being around a lot of people that have received the inoculations. These are the types of symptoms that the uninoculated are feeling. And so I think the only way, the concept we could understand it, was through shedding, because that's what we're used to with previous vaccines. But this isn't a vaccine. This is something totally different. This is a genetic therapy shot. And I just love the way you explained how the frequency is kind of emitting from these people, and also how it's driving the spike proteins throughout the organs in the body.
Yeah, that you're spot on there. And the word shedding, I didn't like it when it first came out, because it it makes you think it's a contagion. Right. It is not a contagion process as we know it, like you said. This is electromagnetic, and it has to do with the fact that you are near and in the electromagnetic field that has been created in that inoculated person, that you're not going to be able to see, but you could measure it if you wanted to get some sort of EMF device that could measure the field. You would be able to see how far it extends, because all these people, as you well know, are being tracked. This is a huge experiment, and the Pfizer and and the wealthy big pharma families that are involved in this are definitely interested in the results, no matter all the the fallout from it and that. So right. The word shedding is insufficient. That's not what's going on. It is that you're in their field. And so when you have some symptoms, it might be a message to you. I mean, I live alone, so I don't get to experience that. But I think that if you live with people who are, you have people who are inoculated, people who aren't inoculated, then you would be able to experiment with that. But you see what's going on here is not. There's no, if you're experimenting and you're looking into things, and there's no fear here, no fear. Yeah. You are becoming a scientist. This is the way a scientist should be. You're going by observation. You're trying things out. You're seeing what's going on. If you're in their field and you don't want to be in their field because you're getting symptoms from them, at least pay attention to the symptoms you're getting, because those could be messages to you. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone necessarily would get symptoms from being in the field of an inoculated person. So to me, symptoms are always messages. If my foot swells, okay, I know what that means. Yep. I go to my diet. If I had this a flu or something, I don't immediately, oh, COVID. No, it's a flu. There is no COVID. It's never been isolated. Just give it up. It's completely a media event. And if that's hard to believe, you haven't been paying attention. Mm-hmm. They do this a lot. So I think what lies behind this shedding question of yours, though, Tammy, is very serious, that you can be run remotely if you have the software and hardware in you, and you will be run. Is there any way out? No, not that I know of at this point. I mean, people say this will help you and this will help you if you've been inoculated. Yeah, it might help, but to get the software out and to get the hardware out, I can't even imagine, because we're talking nanoscale. Yeah, we're talking going straight to the brain. And so, it's going to have to be something else. I myself am preparing to learn to tell the difference between a transhuman and a human being, a 1.0 from a 2.0, because that's where we're going now. The genie's out of the bottle. It's done. And now you notice, I don't know, I'm noticing they're winding it down. And maybe not everywhere, but they are winding it down. So we now have something new to consider in the human beings that we meet, and you will be able to tell in some ways from behavior, but on the other hand, you have this complete system set up to tell you how to behave, to tell you that this thought is yours, this emotion is yours, when really it may not be. And you have to now develop the discernment to tell the difference. Do you see why consciousness will be the only way you can possibly make your way through this obvious transition point in human development?
Yeah, I sure do. I want to go to a little bit of Rudolf Steiner, because I know he's a great teacher of yours. You've followed his work and learned through his writings and whatnot. So he had that, infamous quote now where he talks, he said that, basically to find a vaccine that will drive all inclination towards spirituality out of people's souls when they are still very young. And this will happen in a roundabout way through the living body. Are we here today?
We're here. We're definitely here. Yeah. And it may, to a materialist mind, it's kind of hard to imagine that, okay, you've got spirit here, you've got matter here, never the twain shall meet. Well, unfortunately, that's not true because of frequency. Mm-hmm. And the frequency of a vaccine or a serum and what it carries, and the systems that you have set up in the environment, which is why I had to discuss the environment. Yeah. The systems you've set up will then create a certain kind of human being. And, I think I can use the word hybrid. I think hybrid works for me at this point, as we're in a new nomenclature now. I mean, it's going to be hard on people because they have loved ones who are inoculated, and you're going to, basically have to let them go and have their particular strange destiny. And meanwhile, we're concentrating on being able to keep our humanity. Yes. While the people in power are either ignorant or complicit in dreams of what I attribute to the secret space program, where they want a consciousness that can go abroad, go up into space, and make it through the Van Allen radiation belts, first of all. Mm-hmm. So I have a completely different kind of body and a completely different kind of consciousness to be able to perhaps communicate with bodiless entities in space. I mean, I know this is how these people are thinking.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you talk about this, not really about killing us off. It's about bringing us forward into this new form, right? But they just don't care who dies through this process.
Well, and now we're at the Rudolf Steiner point where I can tell you why. If you give up the spirit, if you think you are just a bucket of meat, or as the CIA calls us, let's see, we have hardware, we have software, and they call human beings wetware. If we are just wetware, then, and not a spiritual being having a physical experience on the earth, then in my opinion, that law of nature will take over, which is nature abhors a vacuum. So if you have a vacuum in you where your humanity should be, your real humanity, other entities will take it over. And you may have two arms, two legs, and a head and a torso, but you will no longer be human. And Rudolf Steiner makes it very clear that human beings are the religion of the gods. And the reason he says that is that we, unlike the angels and other great hierarchies of beings, we have free will, and we have to face evil. We have to face temptations in order to retain our human level of divinity. And it isn't that I want to be an angel. I don't. I want to be a real human being. And that in itself is a journey of consciousness, to really know what being a real human being is, first of all, compared to someone who's running a pretense or has completely sold their soul for some sort of worldly gain. So, there's a lot of, it's not easy to be here.
No.
And it's not easy when you have a media that has completely taken over for what should be your own consciousness, your own delving into things, and to make sure your life is on track.
Well, and that our culture,
that's where we're at.
Our culture has laughed and gaslit any kind of consciousness and spirituality that you express, right? It's just, this is ridiculous. If it doesn't adhere to our science narrative, then you're just a whack job.
Well,
but yet nobody can really tell you how human emotion exists, or how connection, or why connection exists, or why we emote. Nobody can tell you why. So we just, no, it doesn't exist.
Well, I think the most human part of us is not our emotion, because dogs and animals have emotion as well. I think the biggest thing in us is our ability to make an intention, and to make an intention, and to just come hell or high water, you will retain that intention, that ability to just have that perseverance for some greatness, or some
curiosity,
something. And, those are the things that we need to now look at, is what being human really means. And that's kind of why I wrote this book, was to lay out our challenge. And the last chapter, the conclusion, is called Remaining Human, in which I only spend 25 or so pages to lay out a few primary ideas that I have about that, the things that have to be in place. And then from there, I could have gone on and written another book, but it was already long enough.
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because I think so many people struggle with their purpose. They want to know, what's my purpose in life? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't, but you've been so distracted. It's not that you need to find your purpose. You need to remember your purpose.
Remember your purpose, because everybody comes here with something in mind. Everybody. Right. And then maybe you get lost. And then maybe you could find yourself, one would hope, if you're not already immersed in drugs or some terrible program,
trauma,
the government. I always think of the MK Ultras and what they would have been had the government not gotten hold of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just want to talk a little bit about nanotechnology when it comes to weather control. In specifically, we've seen in the last 2 years, just coincidentally, we've seen a lot of really extreme weather and fire.
Well, it's all weaponized now, Geoengineering.
Is there any naturally occurring weather anymore?
There is no natural occurring weather. There is none. It is all controlled now. And if that sounds impossible, remember it's one atmosphere. And it has, yes, it's 25, we have, 25,000 miles around the circumference of the Earth. Well, yeah, but it's all one. And then you have geomagnetism in the Earth. And so you would have readings on that. And then you have the relationship with the ionosphere that HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, would have to do with, along with all the other HAARP-like ionospheric heaters. It's a very big thing. They are rightfully proud of this, that they now have full control of the weather. The problem is the wrong people have full control of the weather. The wrong finger is on the button. It's used politically, just as this so-called synthetic biology inoculation is being used politically. Same thing happens with the geoengineering. So the recent volcano in Tonga, yes, I would say that this was erupted with tomographic capabilities with various ways of it's called interferometry. They bring certain rays together and can go straight down into the earth and so it must have been a message to someone. And probably
we just recently had devastating fires in Boulder, Colorado,
and
which
fires,
is close to us.
That fire was completely set. I studied that fire just as I studied the ones in California. I have a whole chapter in this book on fire. And everybody needs to read it. The nanotechnology,
where you described it as kind of almost acting like an army. As I was watching the footage from the Boulder fire, I couldn't help but go back to your words on that because, there were structures completely left untouched.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing, is using nanotechnology to be phalanxes. Because nanotechnology has its own swarm consciousness. And this is very interesting. So you have something that's created, nanotechnology. It's created from atoms at the atomic level. But what is the atomic level? Well, the atomic level is just this side of the boundary to what we now call quantum dimensions. And so it's like the nanotechnology is not just a thing, a tiny thing, but it gets together with other nanotech atomic level entities, and it creates its own consciousness. And now if you remotely control them, then you can send them this way and that. And you can see in some drone footage of the California fires, I think I showed that in a video, that was done by Jamie Lee, as a matter of fact. And he was interviewing a nanotechnology expert who remains anonymous about how this is done. So they use them in the fires because, according to the insurance companies and their friends and their insiders, and, they want this house burned, but not this one. Or whatever, how that works.
Yeah, they came out with a story right away that it was power lines. And then, of course, the power line company came right back and said, absolutely not, it wasn't us. And now it's a mysterious arsonist that they haven't been able to track down.
It's all a cover story. I watched how that fire burned. And that was a geoengineered fire. No question.
Yeah, we've experienced a rise in fires here in Colorado, and certainly in British Columbia. I know they've had a rise in just extreme weather over there.
Well, extreme weather, we've had that for the last 15 years. We've gone through phases. There was a phase when we had tons of hurricanes. We had tons of tornadoes. We had, they're testing their geoengineering to make sure they really can control it, because this is world control we're talking about here. So,
and if people think that this is crazy talk that are listening, I just encourage you to go look up how the Chinese just launched their own sun the other day for 17 minutes into the air.
Yeah, and they're launching 7 or 8 moons also. Those are all lunar simulators and solar simulators. And I talk about that in this book as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating time to be alive, too. It's not just that it quickens your fear element.
No,
this is very important. And of course, Rudolf Steiner, the idea that you have multiple lives, I mean, I've known that since I was 8 years old. And I don't see anything woo-woo about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if people choose to put the blinders on and live a very narrow life, I wish them well.
Yeah,
I wish them well,
that's your journey.
There's an invitation to have a much larger life. Why not take it? Why not have a larger life then?
Yeah. Fear, I think.
Well, fear of what? Of having something larger? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's people's decision. I always want to leave people free.
Yes.
I am fighting so hard because with this technology, we will not be left free.
No. And that's I'm glad you brought that up at this point in the conversation, because that's really what it's about, right?
It really
is about your freedom. If you want to get aboard the transhuman ship, by all means. I can't do anything about it. My hope is that you try to understand it before you make that decision and the impact that it has on humanity. That's all I can ask.
But I mean, Americans are just not known for their thinking. They're doers.
Yes.
They jump in before they ever consider things. And it's a bad idea now.
Yes. So where can people connect with you?
My site, elanafreeland.com. You can go there, and then you'll find my Proton Mail address there. And then I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook site, one left, 2 have been taken down. This one is called EMF Planetary Engineering. And I post every morning on that site, and I post every morning on gab.com at the groups page called Geoengineered Transhumanism with Elana Freeland.
That's perfect. If there was anything you want to leave our audience with in terms of moving forward and, just making our way through this new world that we're being forced upon, what would it be?
Well, the thought that the thinking we used to create these problems is not the thinking we can use to get out of these problems. We need a new thinking. And that begins with taking responsibility. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Elana, for joining me today and having this conversation. I just love talking to you and to people like you that are so willing to explore the possibilities of who we are as human.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing what you do. Very important.
If the naturally inspired movement makes sense to you, let's do this together and transform the medical model and help people take charge of their health. Learn more about how you can join the Naturally Inspired movement by going to naturallyinspiredadvocate.com or call me at 970-475-4862. Find amazing interviews with people like David Icke, Max Egan, frontline doctors, and more at naturallyinspiredpodcast.com. Connect with me directly at tammycuthbertgarcia.com. Support our amazing team. Help us defeat censorship and become a subscriber for only $5 a month at livenaturallyinspired.com. Find me on all social media platforms at connectwithtammy.com.